Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on November 10th, 2021. It's pretty scary times. It's a little over a couple weeks after Halloween, and I tell you, even though the masks are off, the Biden administration is still a scary and ugly threat to our liberty. But before we get into anything, let's introduce our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He's a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So what we're going to focus on today is a little bit of Second Amendment issues, but really a focus on the Rittenhouse trial, at least to start with on the show. And I tell you that it's been a pretty explosive trial. A lot of people are following this pretty closely. A lot of implications to our liberty and the culture war going on in the country right now. But the prosecution's case is kind of falling apart. Before I get into any of that, let me show you a video so you can see how badly the prosecution's case is going. So just to set the stage real quick, Kyle Rittenhouse was a kid who went to Kenosha after a bunch of riots started involving, issues with a police shooting a black man.
Jacob Blake was a black man. The police
Jacob Blake, yes. And so depending upon which side of the culture war you're on, this is a very different story. And so, but this was one of those incidents that led to a lot of rioting in the streets. And so Kyle Rittenhouse was a kid who lived in that area, and he decided he was going to show up with some, I guess, friends or acquaintances to help protect the community that night from the rioting that was, I guess, promised to break out. And so they came there strapped with AR-15s, I guess, some of them. And their purpose, their stated mission was just to defend these businesses from being burned to the ground, as we'd seen in a lot of other cities going into that night. And so one thing led to another. And at the end of the night, he had wound up shooting 3 people and killing 2 of them. And the question is, was this a self-defense issue, and did he have a right to be there? That's sort of what's going on at trial. And so anyways, let me take you to a video of one of the prosecution's witnesses. And it's just a short clip, but it kind of really hits the nail in the coffin of how bad the prosecution's case is going. So this was a reporter who was running along with the action as it happened that night, as this one gentleman, Rosenbaum, who was a child molester, I guess that's what his background was. He was one of the protesters.
A real upstanding citizen.
Real upstanding citizen, yeah. And so he was, and apparently he had even been witnessed saying he was going to kill Kyle Rittenhouse and some of his other friends if he caught them alone that night. So anyways, so he was already chasing Kyle Rittenhouse at this point through the car lot that he was trying to defend. And this reporter was nearby. And so he was running along with the action, trying to, I guess, capture a news for his publication. And so at one point in the description, the prosecutor had asked him, well, what did you see? And he characterized it just before Rosenbaum was shot that he lunged for the weapon. And at that point, the prosecutor stopped him because, lunging for the weapon doesn't sound good if you're trying to, make the case that Kyle Rittenhouse was out trying to kill these people. Right. And so as he tries to ask him, he tries to make the case. You don't know what this guy was thinking. So to try and, I guess, debunk the lunge, right? Okay. And here's what gets said in the trial. It's a fairly short clip, but it's worth hearing.
You don't know, as you sit here today.
This is the prosecutor
what
speaking.
Mr. Rosenbaum was thinking, do you?
And this is the witness.
You mean at the time of the shooting?
Yes. Or at any point in his life. I mean, you have no idea. what Mr. Rosenbaum was ever thinking at any point in his life. You have never been inside his head. You never met him before. You don't know.
I've never exchanged words with him. If that's what your question is.
So your interpretation of what he was trying to do or what he was intending to do or anything along those lines is complete guesswork, isn't it?
Well, he said you, and
Introducing
Sorry,
Travel and Leisure Club.
looks like we have an ad.
Well, I tell you what, you just can't win with YouTube, you know?
Here, let me jump back.
Complete guesswork, isn't it?
well, he said you, and then he reached for the weapon.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. So, anyways, that's the clip that I wanted to share on that. But anyways,
So-
I mean, what the cardinal rule is: if you're a prosecutor, you don't ask a question unless you know the answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Anyways, go ahead, Screaming Eagle. I didn't want to jump in on you.
Oh, no, it's you know, what was he thinking? Well, I don't know, but he said normally a word associated with aggression and reached for a weapon. I mean, you know, you could just postulate from there what's going on, and you know, there you have it.
You know, I want to take us back a little bit to when these riots were ongoing, and the media reports that came from this. So Kyle Rittenhouse shot these guys, and in the media, MSNBC and CNN in particular, he was spoken about as this white supremacist, and that is why he was out there. It's just amazing to me that this white guy, Kyle Rittenhouse, he shot 3 white guys. So I do not understand how we get to white supremacy here. But only the left could understand that kind of logic. But the point is, though, this guy, it was a boy, at least 17 years old at the time, was demonized as a white supremacist. And that is why he engaged in these actions of shooting these people. When the evidence now is overwhelming.
Leon, can you hold, just for a second? James, could you pull up the image while we're talking, just so people can see? Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Leon.
Good.
This is an image of Kyle Rittenhouse, by the way.
Is overwhelming that this guy shot in self-defense. They even have a picture of the last person he shot, I believe, had a gun drawn and was approaching him with the gun, and that's when Rittenhouse shot him. It's just unbelievable. Now, nobody will go back and apologize for calling this boy, at the time he was just 17 years old, this boy a white supremacist and everything else they called him. But we keep on going. Now we have a trial. Now we are seeing the evidence of what actually happened that night. He was assaulted with a skateboard. He was chased. All of these things happened, and all of these things are coming out in the trial. And you know what? He was a white supremacist at the beginning. But just before we came on the air, it came across the news lines, across the wire, that his attorney, Rittenhouse attorney, has filed for a mistrial, filed a motion for a mistrial with prejudice. And if it's granted, they will have to free Rittenhouse, and they will not be able to retry him on the same charges. But the judge has not yet ruled, so we'll find out.
Yeah, this is just self-defense everywhere you look at it. You know, you have to put your faith in Andrew Branca if you want to get the straight scoop from an absolute expert. How many books have you written on self-defense law throughout the United States? How many books have you written? Well, he's written several, and he's just considered one of the premier experts in the country on self-defense shooting. And he said he saw nothing in any of the video of Kyle Rittenhouse that would indicate anything less than self-defense. Okay, so if the self-defense expert, and I know if someone's watching and they haven't written a book on self-defense and they are not an attorney specializing in self-defense, I would suggest they shut up and listen to what I say. This guy's innocent. He is he's the victim here, and he shot in self-defense. Period. End of story. Stop the trial. It's a sham. It's a trial of the AR-15 versus the Glock, of the kid that wants to protect property versus the kid that wants to burn property down. And of course, we know if you're on the side of the burning the property down, we know where you are. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay. We're on the side of let's protect property, the rule of law. Let's keep peace, and let's not be ridiculous here. You know, when some cop shoots somebody somewhere far away, let's not go burning the whole place down like a bunch of idiots. Okay. And so this is what this is all about. This is about you stupid people that want to burn property down for idiotic reasons, and people like Kyle Rittenhouse that want to protect property, and me, I want to protect property. Okay. And I salute this guy for, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have been there, and I think it was, if you want to protect property, you have to risk your life. And so he did. So, and now this is a done deal. Stop the trial. It's over. Yes. Prosecutors.
Yes. The one thing I would add to your point, Tim, which I agree with, but the one thing I will add, I'll have to say Kyle Rittenhouse's mother is not going to get Mother of the Year, because I believe she drove him there that night. Now, I cannot believe, that I will drive my 17-year-old son with a gun to a situation like that. But he was there. And I firmly believe this was self-defense, and I think the judge should declare him mistrial right now, but if he does not, I think he should get a not guilty verdict. I would hope and pray that that's what happened, but I don't think his mother will get Mother of the Year for her actions on that night by driving him there with knowing that he was armed with a gun. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, quite frankly, he appears to have a lot more character at 17 than a lot of our politicians have. Right?
Absolutely.
Being I
could not agree more, Jason. You're absolutely right on this.
But this is, and this takes maybe just a little bit of framing too for this whole thing, because as we mentioned at the beginning, this all stemmed from the Jacob Blake shooting, which was one of those shootings that followed later in the summer after the George Floyd shooting. Yes. And one of the appalling things about what happened to Kenosha is that none of this had to happen. When the Jacob Blake incident first happened, Jacob Blake was a person who had a restraining order against him for sexual assault on a woman, and then the police were called by that woman because he was violating the order to stay away from her. And so when they got there, the video is out there. You can go check it out. But the police tried just about every way in the book to restrain Blake without using deadly force. And in the end, they couldn't stop him. They tried to tackle him. They tried to tase him. They tried to do just a number of things. And even after they pulled their guns, he still didn't stop. And he proceeded to his car, in which case he reached for a knife in the vehicle. So, I mean, literally everything the police tried to do there was to avoid the situation that wound up happening of the shooting. And the crazy thing with all this is that CNN and, a lot of other left-leaning media organizations, and even worse, Biden and Kamala Harris, among other Democrat leaders at the time, came out and immediately condemned the police because it fit with the narrative of what they believed happened in the George Floyd case. And so it's just, this sparked riots there. Biden came out before an investigation and said the police officer should be arrested. And I mean, it's just, you talk about the lowest of low, you compare character. And here we have the character of the 17-year-old kid who's going out and trying to essentially stand up for the rule of law, stand up for his neighbors and their property. And here you have this degenerate president who is literally, selling out everybody for a few cheap political points. And I just can't even imagine such a contradiction, and not just age, but in character as well. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
But you make a good point though. At the beginning of this thing, nobody wants to look at the facts of the case. Yeah. Right? Nobody. Everybody wants to say, oh, there's a white supremacist shooting these people for whatever reason. I mean, whatever idiotic reason they gave.
With an AR, remember, it's got the AR. It could have been anything else. It would have been a lot better for the guy, but no, he had to have an AR, and so therefore he's bad and he's evil, and he's got to be put in jail just for having an AR. Period. I mean, we all know that.
Of course, yes. And of course, this whole thing was triggered by the fact that Jacob Blake, who was violating a restraining order, who the woman called the police to the site, like you said, Jason, did everything to stop to not to use deadly force. But instead of everybody look at those facts, you know what they started to do? They started to riot and burn down stuff, and they think that is going to resolve our problems in society. Yeah. And this is what was happening over all through the summer. Okay, sure, George Floyd got killed, and everybody had, and sure, there's a lot to be angry about, but that doesn't justify burning down people's property. Talk about all the people who were injured and died during those riots. That it doesn't justify it. Okay, let the process work. Derek Chauvin was tried. I mean, some people disagree with the verdicts, but he was tried. He was put through the process. He's now in prison. I understand he's appealing his case, but it does not justify. It doesn't justify anyone trying to burn down people's property, invade private property, and do whatever the hell you want. It does not justify it. Yeah. So this is where we got to draw these lines, and I hope to God that this case will start people thinking about the facts of a case and not these social justice nonsense garbage that is infecting all of our society today.
And you know, one of the things too I wanted to get to as well, and it's sort of a last minute addition. I wanted to talk about the FBI's role in this, but we could do that on another show because we're kind of running short on time. But as far as the culture war goes in this, you know, this is clearly a case, you know, where a person is going and they're helping to defend their community against essentially, you know, rioting and looting. And look at what's happening to this kid. And compare that to what's happening in places like Chicago, where there's shootouts on the street, and prosecutors are just passing on it because they're saying, you know, it was mutual combat. Mutual combat. You know, how does even that is absolute insanity to say you're going to have a system where, hey, it's mutual combat, so go ahead, shoot up the town. It's no big deal as long as everybody involved is okay with it. It's just insanity. But go to this Rittenhouse case, and here the kid is literally involved in, I guess, mutual combat, but it's all self-defense on his part. And we're going to hang this kid out to dry. We're going to try and destroy his life. But, you know, hey, shoot it out in the streets of Chicago. And I guess the answer is if you're the right color, then you can just shoot it out on the streets. And, you know, the prosecutors are just going to say, hey, mutual combat. I can't imagine a bigger nexus in the culture war than what's going on right now with some of these stories and the contradiction.
All these people love to talk about equality under the law and equality. All of them, they always talk about equality. But you look at what's going on right now, and if you are the wrong skin color, or you belong to or you're on the wrong side of the political spectrum, you'll be treated one way. But if you have the right skin color and you're on the right side of the political spectrum, you'll be treated another. And this is the biggest danger that we have ongoing right now is equality under the law, because we are seeing things going on in our society that we should be scared about. Okay, you were going to talk about the FBI, which I thought it should be a very interesting topic for us to talk about. The FBI has a role in this thing, and it makes you wonder as to why they were trying to hide some of those videos from defense attorneys. I don't know if they ever turned them over, but they were trying to hide them. Okay, you've seen all sorts of things going on. Hunter Biden is under investigation. We hear nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. But some parents wrote the White House, and next thing you hear, Merrick Garland, who is the Attorney General, writing out and that letter that they wrote the White House in called parents domestic terrorists. And before you know it, Merrick Garland had the FBI, they have them all ginned up to go after these parents to make sure there's no violence against school officials. And there's not a single case of it. I think they had one case where it might have been sounded like a threat. But this is the point. This equality of justice under the law is not being enforced in many places. And these are the same people who love to tell us about equality in our society. God help us if we keep along this path. Seriously.
There you have it.
Well, we're kind of stressed for time, but I'm going to try and jump into this one anyways. We've kind of just been spending our time with a good guy with a gun, but let's spend a little bit of time now with a bad guy with a gun. Let's jump to the Alec Baldwin story. We haven't talked about that yet on our show, but it's a case of a guy who was, a famous actor and producer in this case as well. And he was using a prop gun on the set during the production of the show. And he apparently thought the gun was empty. He fired it and wound up killing one of the directors on the set. I think the director of photography, and hitting the director as well with the same shot. So, kind of trick shooting from Alec Baldwin there, I guess, hitting two people at once. But, it's just, kind of a, just one of those gun issues here, and maybe some lessons about whose hands are the right hands, and taking care of guns. I don't want to eat up all the time, and I know Tim, you'd probably love to jump in on this one. Tim, do you have any thoughts on?
Well,
Alec?
yeah, I'm just going to mirror Andrew Bronco's analysis. It's got like a 30 or 40 minute analysis on this case as it is. Could be ruled under New Mexico law. Okay, that's the applicable law. Okay, it's not California law. It's not Ohio law. It's not New York law. It's New Mexico where it happened. It's their law, and their law clearly states, with previous at least one previous case, that this is a cut and dry case of involuntary manslaughter. Okay, so I'm not going to call Alec Baldwin a bad guy with a gun. He's involuntarily shooting people, and the bullet at that range of 45 Colt or whatever, I'm pretty sure that's what they had, will go right. Typically, can pass through the first person and hit somebody standing behind her, which was the case with the director standing behind this person. So the slug impacts hit him too. So this, if it wherever, and it should, it's like, what are they waiting for? They've got a cut and dry case. This would go a slam dunk, involuntary manslaughter. Alec, go to jail. Don't pass go, don't collect $200. Just go directly to jail, because that's where you belong. And you belong there only because you were totally negligent. And if this does get prosecuted, there's going to be a change in the way actors handle firearms. And if they're not capable and willing to check the firearms for how they're loaded, whether they really truly have a blank in them or a live round, then they're all going to be, depending on the state that it happens in, they're going to be potentially liable for negligence. And that's all this was. And it doesn't matter who handed him the gun, if they checked it or not. None of that matters in New Mexico law. Okay, it may matter to you in your wildest imaginations of what law is, but in New Mexico, it's the person that shoots the gun that has to check and make sure it's a safe gun. Okay, the one that points the gun at somebody and pulls the trigger, they're the one ultimately responsible for the safety of that action or the lack thereof. And so in this case, and it's tragic and it's unfortunate, and maybe there can be some civil liability to the other people that handled the firearm and deemed it to be a cold gun or whatever they call it, then fine. But in this case, this guy is guilty as sin of involuntary manslaughter.
Well, it sounds like the title of a movie, Guilty as Sin. he can start.
If I may say quickly, Jason,
Yeah.
Unlike Tim, I am going to call Alex Baldwin a bad guy with a gun, okay? Because these people are a bunch of hypocrites. These anti-gun left people, they're a bunch of hypocrites. They don't mind using guns in their movies to make millions of dollars, and they don't mind having armed security around them to protect them. But they're anti-gun for the rest of us who want to protect ourselves. So yes, I'll call him a bad guy with a gun.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's jump to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. Okay. So that's the point in the show where we try and point out something crazy that some politician or some other personality has said. And in this case, we're right back to our usual suspect of Joe Biden. It's like shooting fish in a barrel with this guy, I tell you. But as far as things go, apparently there was a recent report out on immigration and just a crazy story about how they're going to wind up paying migrants who were separated at the border during Trump's time in office, not during Biden's, where apparently the kids in cages were all built during the Obama administration, but just during the Trump administration. So this is all geared toward him. And apparently they were negotiating to be handing out payments of up to $450,000 an individual. I think we talked about this in our show previously, but also up to $1 million per family. But it's just insanity, the incentive that this gives. But so the reporter, Peter Doocy, called him out on this, and he says to him, he says, as you were leaving for your overseas trip, there were reports that were surfacing that your administration was planning to pay illegal immigrants who were separated from their parents at the border up to $450,000 each or $1 million a family. Do you think that might incentivize more people to come over illegally? And Biden said, if you guys keep sending out that garbage, yeah, but it's not true. And so then he went on to further press him, and Biden said that I guess that it was garbage and that it's not going to happen. Okay, that's literally was his administration's proposal. But then one of his spokespeople came out and said later afterwards that yes, they were going to do this, and that was their plan. A day later, and then Biden a day after that came out and angrily said, "Yeah, we're going to make payments, but I didn't know the amounts." I don't know what you think about this guy. It's just crazy land. Well, you guys have any quick thoughts on this before we go?
Well, you got to forgive him, okay? Please forgive Joe Biden, okay? He did not remember. He did not remember what his policies was. He did not remember who kids were in cages. He don't remember if the kids were lost. He don't remember anything. He don't remember who's crossing the border, whether they're doing it legally or illegal. He didn't remember none of that. So please forgive the guy. Come on.
Any thoughts, Screaming Eagle, before we go? Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
I was going to call him a bad guy with a bad memory.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, we have to remember we're almost out of time here. So there we go. But join us for the next one, and we'll see you then. Until then, stay free.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always.